Yeah, no longer will your air go through that old uh,
Wreck,
rack.
I believe is the scientific term.
Yeah.
Over the past 5+ years, I've watched Lucas as a close friend and colleague deliberately put effort into improvements in his own house to create a truly good, healthy, high 5 factors of good building, low performance house.
Here at my house in Tucson, and trying to tell the story of how to make good building affordable. Being a building scientist has not exactly been the most lucrative career. I've gotten to do a lot of really fun things, work for some amazing people on some incredible projects. But unfortunately, it was really hard to bring a lot of the lessons I'd learned and shared with other people back to my own house. And what was I trying to achieve? What have I learned over the last 20 years of being a building scientist? I boiled it down to these things I call the 5 factors of good building. We won't go into that extensively, but it's about delivering consistent comfort, health, and doing that in a way that's minimized carbon impact, minimized social justice issues, and then not making it a headache for people. Make it easy to operate, make it low maintenance, try to make it resilient to a changing climate, right? Making this whole process affordable is the key to the story I'm trying to tell. And for about a total of $40,000 out of pocket, we have now made a house that's going to be net positive in energy production. So all of our lives are powered by solar. We're going to be consistently comfortable. We're going to have access and control over our own air quality and water quality, so we can have consistent health in our home. And we've done it in a way that doesn't hurt anyone and keeps a lot of things in place. Yeah, I guess taking it slow gives you time to figure out what the actual purpose is and what the value is, right? We were tempted to remodel, right? Everyone is. It's what we're sold is gonna give you joy and happiness and all this stuff, right? Um, but frankly, we just didn't have the money. And I'm really grateful for that at this point, because instead of just doing the same kind of BS everyone does, that doesn't actually create joy and mostly just creates more debt that you have to pay off, we took things slowly and understood problems. So, interesting place to start is solar, right? The reason we ended up there is we flew here because we didn't have time to drive here, which meant we landed without a car with a baby that's about 3 months old and a 2.5-year-old, took a Lyft to the Chevy dealership and bought a Chevy Volt, which is a plug-in hybrid car because that's the lowest carbon kind of car you could have overall, at least one that we could afford at the time. And then that was awesome. We're stoked, right? But then I looked into the impact, the carbon impact per kilowatt hour on the grid here. And it was about 20 times more carbon per kilowatt hour than Seattle. So doing some quick back of the napkin kind of math, obviously, but in an Excel spreadsheet, because that's how I operate, it turned out that it was roughly 4 times the carbon impact to drive the car on electricity from the grid compared to driving the car on gas. So it was absolutely pointless to charge our car. And I was like, that's unacceptable. The whole reason I bought this is to reduce impact and reduce how much it costs us to drive around. So solar became what we did so we could charge the car and drive on sunshine, right? And then that set, I knew that we wanted to go to net zero or net positive ideally, so produce more solar energy than we consume as a household. So I just said, okay, fill up the roof. How many kilowatt hours can we get? We could get 6.5 kilowatt hours up there, which turned out to be enough to cover about 90% of our electric load. But we still had, some gas appliances left over, and that has issues with health and all those things. So then it became, okay, let's change the appliances. Let's get rid of the gas appliances. Still have some issues with air and water quality, right? So that's when we put in a reverse osmosis system, just for drinking water and cooking water, so we could have control over water quality. But then we started monitoring our indoor air quality, maybe obsessively, maybe compulsively, but you know, it worked out to the point where my children are now opening doors and windows when the monitor goes to a scary number without being told to. But it's also something that's wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy, made us kind of uncomfortable. It's not a lot of fun to have to open your doors and windows for air quality when it's 105 degrees outside and then pay like, you know, maybe $10 to cool your house again. So next thing we needed to do is change the space conditioning. And that's now allowed us to be entirely gas-free. We're using ductless heat pumps, which, you know, are the mini splits you see on the wall. Maybe not the best aesthetic, but as far as the delivered performance, they're the best, most efficient, lowest carbon impact option. And then the last bastion, if you will, is controlling our own air quality. And in a lot of the projects we've built over the last few years, we've used this tagline of step inside for fresh air, right? Cheesy, but accurate. You know, when you open the doors and windows in some of the projects we build, the air quality goes down because oftentimes in Arizona, our outdoor air quality is not very good, right? So what is more important in your life than controlling the air and the water that you breathe and drink, right? And you cook with and you bathe with, right? That to me is how you create the foundation for a healthy, good life, how you make sure you're responsible and take care of your family. That's real freedom to me. And if you're wondering what this thing is, this is one of the components of this magical fresh air system called the Brink Flare, if you're curious, that we're putting into the system, or the system is going into our house. And you take two little 3-inch tubes, they click in here. This thing typically goes into your ceiling, and this red part comes out, you put a grill in there, and then it's either supplying or exhausting air continuously in your home, and doing that with about 96% heat recovery efficiency. So instead of having the discomfort and high energy bills of opening doors and windows, you have the feeling of doors and windows being open on a perfect day 24/7 for basically $0. So after 20 years of being a building scientist, I would argue the single most important thing you can do is put an ERV or an HRV in your home. And finally, at long last, doing it at my own home.
Hey, it's Austin from the Edit Shed. I'm working on this video right now, and I'm about to check in with Lucas and see how life's been after he's had the system installed for a few weeks. But before I do, I also want to remind you to do the YouTube things. Most important to us is subscription. So you can tell YouTube that you want to see more videos like this if this is interesting and useful to you. More important than that, though, is to leave a comment and join the conversation. Our whole reason for doing these videos is to create community and conversation around these topics. And we'd much rather chat with you than just keep speaking to the void of the internet. So, with that said, let's check in with Lucas and see how things are going.
Can you hear the system running?
No.
I have it at full blast just for perspective.
Nice.
It's not bad. I have my ductless heat pump making my office 75 degrees, which is a lot warmer than the rest of the family accepts in the house.
Nice. So, you've had the system for like a few weeks now.
No, no,
How's life?
good, good. You know, it's a lot less stressful when you don't have to think about, oh crap, my air quality is making my children grumpy and giving me a headache and making me need more naps and all those things, right? Like, it really is freeing to experience.
Nice.
Yeah. And even at full blast, I mean, I can hear it a little bit. Zoom's pretty good at sound filtering, but it's like even at this full blast setting, it's roughly the equivalent of a quiet bath fan. And then when you turn it down to level 2 or level 1, you have to go check with your hand to make sure it's on.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest change?
Humidity inside has been the biggest change. We used to have insanely dry conditions inside the house. I mean, roughly what outside was because our house was super air leaky and no ventilation system, and we'd have to open doors and windows all the time to try to make it so we didn't have VOC or CO2 or PM 2.5, particulate matter spikes. We were constantly opening doors and windows. So we were basically living sort of outside. And now we live in, I guess, an enhanced version of outside. The outside that we idealize is where we live in now.